We're doing this. Let's make sure everything's working. Everything seems good. All right. It's church chat with Pastors Dan and Dave. Come hang out with us on our stream. It's church chat today. Oh my gosh.
That is the most amazing thing I have ever seen in my entire life.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Hi, welcome to Church Chat. I'm Dan.
And I'm Pastor Dave.
And that's James Adkins over there pushing the buttons and all those things. And
Writing tunes.
Writing tunes 30 seconds before we go live to give us a theme song, which, I mean, that's real songwriting
That
talent
is.
right there.
That's put it in a crunch.
Oh my goodness. That was amazing. So, hey, hope everybody's doing well. Glad that you are with us on another Wednesday church chat. This is just something we've been doing since we can't physically be together. It's great to be able to just share with you a little bit during the week about some things that are going on in our lives and things that we think you're probably experiencing. We're going to be joined in just a little bit today by the director of the Adamus Board, Precia Stuby. And excited to talk with her just a little bit about, we're going to be talking today some about mental health care and things like that as we're going through a time that's isolating and can be really difficult for some people. But before we get into the heavy stuff, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I was reflecting while you were talking, though. Isn't it amazing that the people that we've been able to have who've been agreeable to share some time with us?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
The mayor, and we had Sister Edna, and who else? Barry Burns was with us, now Precia. So that's been really cool.
Yep. So thankful for people who are reaching out and willing to kind of just share a little bit of their expertise and knowledge on different things with us to be able to just help us all through this stuff. So what have you been doing to cope, Dave?
Well, I was reflecting before we got started. I really appreciate your family and some of the stuff you've been doing, like trivia night. The school pictures was killer. If you have a chance, go on Facebook and look at Dan and Holly did their school pictures with the whole family, and it was pretty awesome.
We did like a whole yearbook page kind of thing. It was fantastic. So I don't know why. I woke up yesterday morning and I was looking at, social media and all that stuff as I kind of do right now, more than I have in years. Like I'm really kind of invested in it. And I saw somebody say something along the lines of, my kid came and sat at the kitchen table and he was actually not in his pajamas. He was dressed nice. And he said it's school picture day. And so I thought that's either really sweet or he's cracked. Either way, I've charged him $45 for the whole package. So it's like, oh man, we got to do actual school pictures. So got a bed sheet and nailed it to the wall, and then put a stool in front of it. And Holly came out with her little phone. It's just like Olin Mills. It was like the whole thing. So I should have given each of them a comb before they came. Like you remember that? They used to give you the little black comb that said, they always said unbreakable on it.
And that was the thing.
Which was the thing. You got to see if you can break it.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
The BB gun would take it in half. For sure, I found that out.
Oh, is that right?
And if you worked it for a while...
if you work it for a while, you could easily break that. Like, you give that to any junior high kid, that's just a challenge. That's all that is. That's not... Like, you might as well have not put that on there. No one would have tried to break it if you hadn't put that on there. But because you did, we felt like we had to. So we've tried to do some fun things on Facebook, and if you have any really good ideas for things we should do, let us know.
Well, I've been jealous of you guys for that, but then I've also been appreciative that I'm not there. Our family is a totally different stage. I mean, you're at a point where your kids are still kind of depending on you for entertainment and that sort of thing. We have 5 adults in our house, 2 college-age kids and one that is finishing up his sophomore year. So for us, we enjoy some time together for sure. Right. And every day we've been spending a little bit of time together. But we pinch each other. I mean, we step on each other's toes because we're all at a stage in life where we want we want some space, you know.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to go.
No.
For whatever reason, I have a pottery studio in my basement. I have not been able to get down there. I'm just not inspired to do that right now. And so I've been focusing on other things like the chickens.
Oh, yes.
Yes, where the chickens is consuming my life right now. We are going to build them. We are going to... I'll post it on Facebook.
Oh, you've got
the
to.
setup that we're going to put out for these things. So I've been finding other things, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
I mean,
it feels like you run out of things after a little while.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, my oldest boy we took a trailer and we went to northeast Ohio to grab some fencing for the chickens.
For the chickens.
But it just felt like we went on some great adventure just to get out of the house for that long. And that was a little bittersweet too, because we went to my mother-in-law's house and we really couldn't. We just had to stay at a distance.
Wave at them.
Yeah. I mean, she did come outside and we stayed plenty far away and that kind of thing. But that was tough.
Yeah.
But
we've been doing the same kind of thing. We, with grandparents, like waving from the driveway and that kind of stuff. We actually went out to Van Wert a couple nights ago, where Holly's family's from, and we're able to wave to her parents from the driveway, and we were picking up the FM transmitter that we're going to use for our Easter service. That'll be at Emory Adams Park, so hopefully you guys will be there for that. But then, we kind of did the same thing that we just take, 30 to 75 or whatever, but this time we just said, let's go that way. It just drove cross country and found little towns and just took a drive, and it was... Yeah, it did. It felt like an adventure. It felt like this beautiful, wonderful experience getting to get out a little bit and all that stuff.
Well, and another, factor to mention to my house, too, is everybody's still working.
Right. Yeah.
And I know for me, working, I'm still just as busy because you're
busier.
Yeah, because you're trying to learn this technology, too.
Right.
On top of figuring out what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
But all three of my boys, as I mentioned before, they're chicken technicians at Lee's famous recipe chicken, and
chicken technicians.
And it's great that they're still open. They're following all the protocols. Shout out to Lee's. They're could we get paid for that?
We've really got to start.
Yeah.
Getting some advertising.
They're following all the protocols. They even have a sneeze guard over the register. They take everybody's temperature when they come in. So get yourself some chicken, boy.
But I think, so a part of what we're kind of alluding to is that all of this stuff can emotionally and mentally wear on you. And we know that we started to hear some things about, there's just increased issues with mental health care and things like that right now. And so that's part of why we wanted to talk about that today. It's something that, and I've never made a secret about it, but mental health is something I've struggled with in the past and throughout my life. Anxiety, and maybe there's some depression in there as well from time to time, and things that I've learned to kind of manage and be able to walk through. Some with medication, some with just some better life practices, and then my faith is a huge part of helping me to overcome it as well. But times like this, I think, can really heighten maybe some of those other issues that might already be there or be underlying.
Yeah, I as well have struggled with mental health, specifically depression and seasonal affective disorder, which oftentimes leads to some weight issues I have too, just from all that. And so for me, when I do get outside, it's been pretty gloomy.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to stay outside as much as possible just to soak up a little bit of extra. But I know that comes with our calling in a way too. Sure. I wouldn't say that a pastor's the hardest job in the world. I would.
We're doing this. This is okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a redhead roofer in July. But mental illness does
Yeah.
hit our profession a little hard.
Yeah.
And
I've seen stats somewhere around 70% of pastors at some point in their career are diagnosed with depression or some other mental health issue. It's just it happens. It's very very common, and I think that there's still a lot of stigma around that.
Yes.
So we don't talk about it a whole lot, but it's just a part of reality, and it really is. It's a health issue. That we've got to be comfortable enough to talk about, because being able to talk about it is really the key to being able to start addressing some of those things as well. So that's part of why we wanted to talk with Precia today, and be able to just have some conversation around what are some healthy practices, not just for people who maybe struggle with depression or anxiety, but we also know that right now, there are people who are going through addiction issues and are struggling through all of that and are trying to, and would usually be going to meetings or something like that. And what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be interested to hear kind of how, maybe there's some technology being used to, for meetings to still happen and things like that. But just what are some healthy practices to be able to, during this time of isolation that I don't think a whole lot of us were fully prepared for.
No, not at all.
It feels like it kind of came, it wasn't out of the blue, but it came faster, I think, than people were expecting, and to be able to kind of mentally prepare yourself for that.
Well, this 15 minutes has gone by really quick, and I know we're going to get to our caller here, but there are two things I want to get back to, and they're directed to you. I want to talk about what maybe you've done and I've done to sort of, in our own life, battle that depression, and some things that have maybe helped and some tools we've picked up. So maybe we could get back to that after we talk.
Yep, I think so. Absolutely. So are we ready for her?
Yes, let's see here. So I gotta call her. Hey, let me make it so everybody can see me. Hey, everybody.
Hi,
so
James.
hey, we're gonna look like the Brady Bunch in a second with all these windows open. But I'm gonna go ahead and make the call. So hopefully we'll get that set up really quickly. And but also I did want to say, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the St. Mark's channel if you want to see more of this. Because once we get to a certain amount of subscribers, we get some more functions. And currently, I think we're just under the number, so it would really help us out. Smash that subscribe button.
Yeah.
Hit
click
the notification bell.
The bell, yeah, all the things.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make the call, so you guys just start talking to each other, and then I will awkwardly cut you off.
Sounds
Excellent.
Perfect. So, I do want to make sure that we talk about some of the things that we've done ourselves to kind of overcome some of this stuff.
Right.
Not that I'm an expert in any way on all of this stuff, but I feel like, we've experienced it, and maybe we'll be able to help some people out.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've got her. I just need to
right.
bring her into our streaming software here, utilizing the camera magic. There she is. Let's make her bigger. There we go. All right, so I think you guys are on. And,
all right. Hi, Precia. This is Pastor Dan Metzger, and I'm here with Dave Charles. We're the pastors at St. Mark's. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Absolutely. So we're talking just a little bit today about, especially during this time of isolation and things like that, just how we deal with mental health during these times. And I might add that we recently had a meeting just before all the social distancing stuff was starting to happen between clergy and people from the Adamus Board and some partners at Weinbrenner Seminary and some people from the mayor's office to kind of talk about how the faith community can help in the field of mental health services. So maybe could you just share a little bit about what Adamus does, and just especially maybe as it relates some to people in faith communities?
Okay, well, the shortest story about the board is we're responsible for making sure that there's a safety net in the community for individuals that struggle with mental health and or addiction. So the intent is that nobody is denied access to care because of their ability to pay and or their level of severity of involvement. So we're like that. We're going to make sure you have something if you need help with mental health and or addiction.
Great. So during this time especially, um, we were talking just a minute ago about people who struggle with addiction and who would normally be going to meetings and things like that. What sort of resources are available right now?
Well, in general, not just with addiction, but also with mental health, there are services available. What's different is most of them are like this.
Mm-hmm.
They're in some sort of electronic format. So most of the addiction recovery supports are being coordinated through Focus, which is our recovery support center. For example, they're doing like a monthly recovery or a daily recovery check-in at noon. They're doing online support groups and so on. So it's a different delivery mechanism, but the same people and the same services.
Dan and I were talking. We both have had our struggles with depression and that sort of thing. And I know for me, one of the toughest things to overcome was the stigma behind it, which is sort of ridiculous from a biblical standpoint, because you look at the Bible, there's, thousands of years of mental illness, and, oftentimes people, they thought were possessed, more than likely had some type of mental illness. So it's ridiculous that thousands of years later, we're still have this stigma behind mental illness. What is it we can do to overcome that stigma?
I would say, from the chair I sit in, it's helping people get over fear of the unknown. So when you have somebody that struggles with a physical illness, most people have like an intuitive response of empathy. And they also can think of 3 or 4 or 5 things that they can do to help that individual. So they'll intuitively say, "I'm so sorry to hear that. Do you need food? Do you need a ride to your doctor's appointment? Do you need somebody to watch your kids?" And I think the same message is true for people that struggle with mental health and addiction. But people need to understand, don't be afraid because they struggle. They have a different illness, but it's still an illness, and an illness of the brain. So if we can work on helping them to have an intuitive response of empathy for mental health and addiction, and also let them know that the same things that people need during a primary health illness, they need those too when somebody's struggling with mental health or addiction.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
And so there are people right now who already struggle with some sort of, whether it be depression or anxiety or any mental health issue. It seems to me that this time of kind of isolation would really possibly heighten some of the issues around that. What are some of the things you recommend for people who maybe are really struggling with some of those mental health issues right now?
It's a two-way street. So I'm going to take the focus off the individual struggling first, and say that those of us who are healthy members of congregations who want to live their faith, reaching out to individuals that they know struggle during this time is a wonderful thing to do. Whether it's a phone call or a text, "I'm thinking about you," or dropping a card in the mail, anything that we can do to promote that connection and remove some of that social isolation is what we need to do. And all of us, are capable of doing that. For individuals who struggle, that have the mental illness or the addiction, sometimes it's very helpful for them as well to think outside themselves and for them to do some of the reaching out too. It's one of the healthy activities they can do during this time when we're so confined.
That's yeah. I love the idea of just being able to reach out to people. I think that is so important, and we've been encouraging our congregation to do that. And so thank you for that. What other things would you just like people to know, or what resources do they need to know are available to them through the Adamus board?
So, what I would say to people is if you don't know if a service is out there or you want to know what's happening specifically as a result of COVID-19, there's a website called Hancock Helps. And it's very easy to navigate. Even somebody who's technically challenged like myself can do it. It's like a picture, point and click on this for help. And so what that is like the central repository where people are saying, I'm open, I'm not open, I'm doing things online, so on and so forth. So Hancock Helps is a wonderful opportunity for people to go to get some help. As far as like general overall things, I would say that more than anything I've ever experienced, we're all being touched by this virus in one way or another, which means we're all experiencing some sort of trauma. And because we're experiencing trauma, we also have to engage in things that help us be resilient to the trauma. And if you have time, I'll just quickly name a few of those.
Absolutely.
One is to make sure that we validate individuals' feelings. So, we don't want to judge somebody and say, you shouldn't be afraid. You should be happy. Don't tell people how they feel. How they feel is what they feel. So we want to validate people's feelings and be present and listen to them as they share their feelings. We really want to help people focus on what they can and cannot control. So when your mind runs away from you on things that, like, for example, we can't control where all this virus is going. What are the things you can control? You can control the hand washing. You can control about, keeping your physical distancing and that kind of thing. But really helping to help people focus on what you can control. We want to make sure people maintain connections in any way. Social isolation is not good for any of us. And then help people really think about how do they self-regulate? How do they come back to a sense of calm for them? Is that making sure there's routine? Is that making sure there's physical exercise? Is it something that you need to, meditation? Anything that helps you center yourself is something that we should be helping people do during this time.
Thank you for that. And we'll put the Hancock Helps website in the comment section. Right, James?
Oh, wonderful.
And
I will try.
We'll figure it out. I should have actually started with this, but one last question. I just want to know how are you doing? How's your everybody at the Adamus board who I know is on the front lines in a different way, and we really appreciate you. So how are you doing during this time?
Well, thank you so much for asking. We're all trying to work remotely. We are learning new skills, as your staff can attest to, in terms of all of these electronic kinds of challenges. But we're trying to come together every day to support one another. I would just say that everybody's trying to do their part, and we see our part as trying to make sure that services stay out there, that they remain available, and that if people feel the need, that they reach out and get the help that's out there.
Thank you so much for all you do and for joining us today, and just praying for you and for all of those who are helping out our community during this time. Thank you.
And
I can't tell you how much I sincerely appreciate that. Yeah, thank you as well.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
I just wanted to pull myself up so we look like we're the Brady Bunch for a second. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for all your help today. I hope that's what you wanted.
That's absolutely perfect. Yep. All right.
All right.
All right. Goodbye.
So nice to meet all of you. Bye-bye.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that I was glad to hear just kind of some of uh, her advice around reaching out to others.
Yeah.
And one thing that she didn't say but that I've heard several times uh, recently is that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's relationship. And so for people who are struggling with that,
Sure.
man, relationships during this time are going to be absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Yeah. And I wonder too how much of that how much of the isolation has maybe led to a little more self medication
Sure.
and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. As I was thinking about this, just kind of bringing it back to a scriptural lesson, we were talking about what are the things that we've done that have helped us through this. And for me, there's been a lot of different things, but I want to talk just for a minute about some of the things my faith has done for me. And one of the things is there are so many scriptures that are just so good at helping you to kind of regain your focus or right your perspective to an extent. And for me, there's a psalm that has always stuck with me. It's one of my favorites. It's Psalm 13. And I memorized it a long time ago because it was just that important to me. And it just says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" Right? It starts off real cheery. "How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and every day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemies triumph over me?" Then it says, "Look on me and answer, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death." Right? Have you ever felt that way? "My enemies will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall." So it's pretty bleak. But then it ends like this. It says, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good to me." And so the thinking is that this psalm was written by David during a time when he was, one, on the run from Saul, who was trying to kill him, and two, he came down with a terrible illness and thought he was going to die. And that's when he writes this. It's like, are you serious? Like, I already have these enemies, and now I'm so sick I might die, and they're just going to be so happy about it. And he's just crying out to God, "Are you going to forget me forever?" Right? And I think maybe there have been times in my life where I've felt that way. Like, God, where are you in the midst of all of this? But then at the end of it, he comes back around to this idea of, "I trust in your unfailing love, and my heart rejoices in your salvation." And then he says, "I'll sing to the Lord, for he's been good to me." Like, he's able to take a step back and gain a little bit of perspective. Even in a time when things are hard, he looks back and says, "Man, my life has been blessed. I've been a blessed person. And even if even if something terrible does happen, he has been good to me. And I have salvation through him. So I'm going to be all right, regardless of what happens to me." So that's been a psalm for me that's been important to pray, because it's very honest at the beginning. It's very honest with how I feel. It's very honest with saying, "God, where are you?" But then at the end, bringing it back into perspective and saying, "But I trust you. I love you. I worship you." And so spiritually for me, that's been that's been kind of the pattern that I've followed a lot. So, and I know you said you had some scriptures that were
yeah,
meaningful to you.
I didn't memorize them.
Well,
And,
that's why you're an associate pastor, Dave.
yeah, that's true.
I only had one though, and you've got like four.
I just had it's short, but I just scribbled down my thoughts today, and there were 4 encouragements from the Bible, and one is, you're not alone. God's people, they've suffered mentally, emotionally, physically, ever since the fall. And even Christ himself cried out in despair on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And that was echoing a psalm.
Right.
And when we suffer, we're not alone. And I think that's important to remember. what's more, mental illness is probably more common than any of us would ever even know. It's 1 in 5 American adults live with mental illness,
Yeah.
and 1 in 4 worldwide have mental illness issues. And so we're certainly not alone in this. And number two is it's not your fault.
Right.
That's something I really struggled with. Mental illness, it's not because you're weak. John 9:3 says, "My affliction, like the one of the man born blind, isn't punishment for my sins or the sins of my parents." Mental illness is not the fault of anybody. It's
Right.
just something that that you struggle with.
It just is.
Yep. And then another one is that God sees you and is with you. We have a personal Savior in Jesus, and it's so basic, but you know, it's hard to come back to sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like that psalm you read, you have to kind of remember that.
Right.
And he weeps with us. He wept with Lazarus. He knew the resurrecting work that he was about to do, and he sobbed in anger anyway. We have a Lord who has empathy, and I wrote down a whole bunch of other ones, but I'll cut down to the last one. God's word speaks to us. The Bible isn't afraid to talk to us on a mental or about mental or emotional anguish. You just brought that up in one of the Psalms, which just took on that characteristic of most Psalms. It starts with an outpouring of emotion, and
Right.
before it ends on that, oh yeah, that's right. You are the God of my Father. You are my God, and I know you're going to be with me. And so God hears our emotion. I mean, you even look at one of my favorite characters in the Bible was always Job,
Yeah.
who wasn't afraid to let God kind of have it.
Yeah.
I mean, and God took it when God really took exception with Job is when Job presumed to know the mind of God. That was
Right.
a little too far. And
Yeah.
then he said, well, wait a minute. Where were you when I created the earth?
Right,
And that sort
right,
of thing.
right.
But he did not mind Job questioning and pouring out his heart to him. So
Yeah. I mean, emotions come from God. Like that is a gift that God has given us, that we're not just robotic, whatever, that we have emotion, and it's biblical. There's a whole book of the Bible called Lamentations. I mean, it's all about just lament and sorrow, and like, you want to get bummed, just read Lamentations. I mean,
Yeah.
it's normal, and it's okay, but there's been, like we said, there's been kind of this stigma, and I don't know the history around all of this, and I'd be interested to look into it. But for me, it seems like at some point in time, we decided to equate the status of our mental health with how strong our faith must be. Like, if you are sad and depressed, or like you have depression issues or anxiety issues, well, your faith just must not be strong enough.
or
Like,
you're not a strong enough person.
you're not a strong enough person, and you're not a strong enough Christian, and if you are worrying, because of your anxiety, which is an actual mental health diagnosis, there must be something wrong with your faith. Now, and I just don't believe that's true. I think
know.
that there's chemical things, there's actual mental health issues that cause some of these things. Now, does faith have a factor in it? Yeah, absolutely. There's faith has a factor in everything that we do, but that's not the sole part of it. And I think that's why, as Christians, we've sometimes had such a hard time talking about mental health, is that we've come to believe, well, if I have mental health issues, or if they are depressed, if they are anxious, if they are whatever, well, they just must not have turned it over to God
Right.
yet. And it's just not, that's not the full part of it. And I think that's something that we need to be better at as people of faith, is coming around people who have these kind of issues and saying, hey, we're here to walk with you through this. And the answers are scriptural, prayer, but then there's also medical answers, and there's going to a counselor is not a bad thing. Therapy is not a bad thing. These are good things to do, and it's a part of being a whole person doing all of these things.
Which gets back to those questions from earlier, like so how is it that you've been able to combat?
Right. So I mentioned, I do take some medication. I also have, there's also obviously a spiritual aspect to it, prayer. And I had a spiritual director that I talk with on the regular to just kind of talk through some things. And if you are interested in a spiritual director, we would love to talk with you about, I know several, couple right here in Findlay that I'd be happy to hook you up with. But then also there's just some other practices. For me, anxiety has been the main one that I've dealt with. And so when I get to that place where there's some anxiety, I have this practice called box breathing that was taught to me. And it's basically 5 seconds to inhale, hold it for 5 seconds, 5 seconds to exhale, hold that for 5 seconds. So you kind of imagine a box, like inhale, hold it, exhale, hold it, inhale, hold it. And it just kind of, when I focus on my breathing and I focus on those things, that's helpful to me. Diet and exercise are, factors in that. It seems to always be when my diet is good, my exercise is good. That's when my mental health seems to also be good. And then just things, one of the ways I love to exercise, I never really loved to exercise, let's be honest. But one of the ways I do it is I love to, hiking in the woods or something like that. And I love that it's getting nicer out and being able to go out and do some of that. So those are some of the things that I've done myself. How about you?
Certainly medication, which that one was tough for me. And then it was finally through a counselor who told me, if you had this physical ailment over here, you would take medication, right? Yeah. Like you have GERD at night, so you take stuff for it. Why wouldn't you take it for this? So that's one thing. I see a spiritual director who we met last week, Sister Edna. She's awesome. Yeah. And I do go to a counselor about once a month. Mm-hmm. And same with Sister Edna. It's about once a month that I go. And those are two different things. One takes care of my mental well-being and the other takes care of my spiritual well-being. Diet has my mental state has a lot to do with diet. About 5 years ago, my nephew killed himself, and I know that really affected my depression. And in the last 5 years, I've gained a ton of weight. And so that's something that I have to deal with too. Is I eat my feelings. But
well, sometimes your feelings are delicious.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But my feelings are never like an apple. It's like,
right.
It's like cake.
They're like, oh, I'm sad. I want a granola bar. Yeah. Right. Yes. It's never that.
But I do love taking walks, and that really helps me a lot. Walking and just and focusing on different things. Another thing that helps me quite a bit is, we preach a lot about taking a Sabbath.
Yes.
And for pastors, our schedule's obviously a little bit different. Right. I mean, we're kind of on call 24/7, and we have, our Sundays, our weekends aren't always our own, but every Friday I try to, at least half the day, it's mine, and I jealously guard that.
Yeah, same.
I'm not doing your errands. I'm not doing, this is mine, and I just need it. And some of that time I spend, with the Lord. And another thing I try to do is eat breakfast with God, because everybody in my house kind of leaves about 7:30 in the morning ish, and so I purposely get up after everybody's gone, and will kind of, while I'm eating my breakfast, I'll kind of listen to some different meditations and go through the Bible as I eat my breakfast and pray. And so I always like look at it as eating breakfast with Jesus. And I think that's a good practice for me that has helped a lot.
And I think that, speaking of Jesus, I think he gives us some great examples of what self-care looks like, even in the midst of, busiest guy on the planet, right?
For
and
sure.
he would find times to go away and be by himself and take care of himself, and show us what some of that looked like. He would take naps. He loved taking naps. He would take a lot of naps. Like, how many times they say, "Oh, Jesus is asleep in the boat," or whatever else. Like, he's just chilling.
Even when the boats were about ready to sink.
Yeah, he's like, it's my nap time, you guys. I jealously guard this. And, but I think Jesus also shows us. We remember he's fully God, but he's fully man, and so he experiences. Fear, and experiences. And we see it in the Garden of Gethsemane. Sure. Right before he's arrested, as he's being betrayed by his best friends, and they're abandoning him, and he's about to suffer the worst thing that anybody will ever suffer. And I mean, he's sweating drops of blood at this point. I mean, he's really got some difficult mental stuff going on during that time that he's dealing with. And so what's beautiful to me about that is that we have a God who can empathize with us in our own issues, in our own fear and anxiety and depression and all of these things. I mean, he's experienced everything that we experience, and so that gives me comfort to know that our Jesus went through that. And as we go through this Holy Week next week, it's something that I'll remember, that I'll be keeping in mind, is that, man, just as this is kind of a dark time for a lot of us, he's experienced dark times.
Yeah.
He gets dark times, right? So,
hey guys,
yes, sir.
I wanted to jump on real quick. I seem to recall one time I mentioned to you that I was out running, and you said, "Why? Is somebody chasing you?" But I know it is a little tough to get out and to do exercise right now and to eat healthy. That's pretty rough, in these circumstances. But I do try to go out and take some runs as well.
I believe when I got here today, you were eating chocolate waffles.
Dark chocolate waffles. They have a lot of protein and very little sugar.
Oh yeah, they're super healthy. They're
sure. Pretty healthy. I also wanted to mention that I happen to know an anxiety coping thing that I really like. And
sure.
That is, when you're feeling anxious, to just look around the room and name 5 things in the room. Then name 4 things that you can touch. 3 things you can smell. Anything to get yourself out of your own head.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's helped me. And also, I just wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about your Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
Or what you plan to do for Palm Sunday.
Yeah, so kind of leading into all of that, we'll have a service right here on this couch at 10:30 on Palm Sunday. And then there's a couple of different ways that we're asking people to celebrate with us. One, if you live here in Findlay or wherever you live, do it wherever.
Yeah.
If you've got some sidewalk chalk, go out and draw some palm branches on your sidewalk. And we'd love to share this around town so that as people are taking walks this week, but especially on Palm Sunday, maybe they can walk and see those. Or, if you don't have sidewalk chalk, cut some out of construction paper. Or if you've got something that looks like a palm branch, put it on your front door or in your window so that as people are walking, #PalmWalk, they can see those. Shout Hosanna, which Hosanna means save us or rescue us, which, I mean, has there ever been a time more that we have cried those words out to Jesus? And so that's one way that you can do that. Another way that you can celebrate with us is from 2 to 2:30. We'll be in the parking lot of the church, and shout out to Elena Miller,
Yes.
who is it like Columbus area?
Yes.
That she's
Yep,
going to.
yep.
She's found some palm branches because we had canceled our order thinking we're not having church, but then we kind of had this idea, and Elena's really jumped
force
on it
behind it.
Yeah, and so we're gonna have some palm branches. We'll have like 200 palm branches, I think. So come on through the parking lot. We'll give you a sterilized palm branch, and then we'd ask you to drive down past the hospital, and all the while just kind of waving it out the window, and just remembering what it was that Jesus came to do, that he came to rescue us and redeem us. But driving down past the hospital, praying for the people of the city, praying for our first responders, our healthcare workers, those who are sick, and so you do that, and then you turn around and go back down by the courthouse and pray for all of our political leaders and those, and again, police officers and fire and all of those who are really helping us during this time. Be in prayer for them. Wave your palm branches out the window, and it's a neat way. This is going to be a unique Lenten season,
for
no
sure,
matter how you slice it. So we're trying to just keep things, keep as involved as we can in creative ways. And it reminds me a little bit of something Precia said about, trying to do things for other people.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the ways that I cope. That's why you see all the ridiculous things from me on Facebook. My goal every morning to kind of help with my own mental sanity and to get through this is, how many people can I make smile today?
Yeah.
How many people can I affect today in some way, in a positive way? It's a part of why we're doing this. It's a part of, it's just really why, it's my why in the mornings, why I'm doing what I do. Make as many people smile as we can. And so this is a way you can get involved in that. And then, of course, again, Easter Sunday, we're going to be out at Emory Adams. We're going to figure out the technology. James is a wizard. And we're
gonna be lucky if this goes well.
It'll be fine. James is gonna do all the work, and I will pray over it.
Before we get too much farther, could you guys? Sorry, speaking of Precia, could you remind me again the website that I'm supposed to be?
Hancock Helps.
Hancock Helps. Okay, I'm gonna do that.
All right, and so Easter Sunday, 10:30 at Emory Adams Park. Stay in your car. Do not get out of your car, or Dave will tackle you. And we'll worship from our cars, and it'll be a way for us to celebrate Easter together. It'll be kind of in the back parking lot, back by where the bridge is. If you're familiar with Emory Adams, it'll be back that area, and you'll see. We'll have you come in and line up there and be able to celebrate our risen Savior, who
absolutely,
just like all the stores and restaurants, the tomb was empty. See what I did there?
Yeah, I see it.
See what I did there? 'Cause it's social distancing.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
It was a joke.
It's April Fool's Day.
It's kind of a dad pastor joke.
Yeah, I've done a lot of those recently.
Yeah, me too.
My kids are a little bit over it. I'll be honest. They're pretty done with it.
Tim would like to know what time Sunday. 2:00 Sunday.
For the yes, from 2 to 2:30, we'll have palm branches in the parking lot. So you can just come through. We'll have gloves on. We'll hand you a palm branch or a couple if you have a couple kids in there, and then you can take your drive down Main Street. So,
service will be at normal
10:30.
10:30.
Yep, normal 10:30 time for the service. So, all right, man.
This is a good one. I like.
This was a good one.
Yeah, I like this one.
This is in our top 3 easily.
Yes, for sure. I would put that right up there.
That's another dad pastor joke. Can we do this?
We're doing it.
All right.
I'll wash my hands.
I'll wash my hands too. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thanks to James Adkins over there flipping the wax and doing all the things. And
Hit that subscribe button.
hit that subscribe button.
Would it be cool?
Ring the bell.
Oh, we should probably close in prayer, right? You think?
You suggested it. Go
Yes.
for it.
Father God, you're good, and we thank you for your goodness, and we just thank you for the ability to be able to do this and to still connect. And Lord, let us not forget that you are a God who is our Savior. You are a God who never leaves us alone. You feel for us. You're always by our side. Through this time, help us to feel your extra presence, though. Hold us close. And certainly give us some grace and some compassion for not only for those outside of our home, but for those in our home, especially, Lord. Just give us that spirit of extra grace and peace and wisdom, Lord, as we go about. We try to navigate this. I won't say new normal. I'll say this temporary normal for now, Lord. Give us wisdom. And certainly we ask that you just rid the world of this virus and that you keep us safe. We love you, Lord, and we lift those things up in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. One more thing before we go. Also, if you have kids, be looking today for a Spark Kids Online video to be coming out from Corinne. And yeah, we will see you this Sunday at 10:30 right here. So God bless you guys. Take care.
Take care.